yeah, here's the creative industry, go.
Yeah.
And then you kind of just have to figure it out. Obviously, there's set guidelines and everything, but it's just so much more tough. So yeah, I joined this Discord group, and then Jason, Justin, and Adrian, amongst a host of other people, were in it. And then I'm like, oh, cool. And then that's when looking back on it, that's where I got poached.
Yeah, that was the moment.
Yeah, that's the moment I got poached. Oh my God, like this is what I want to do. Because I saw the intentionality, I saw the story, I saw the inspiration, I just saw everything that we're doing, and I was just like, wow, I suck. How did you go from videographer to cinematographer? But there's a big step in between that I kind of realized as soon as I started working with them that you can't just do that.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Unfold podcast. My name is Juanjo, and today we are joined by
Zachary Guy.
Zachary Guy. And what do you do, Zachary Guy?
I am a cinematographer, business owner, runner of a production company, editor. I wear many hats, but yeah, I guess that's it.
Cool. Let's talk about one of your hats, the Adidem fitted. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. No, I want to talk to you about why you got into this whole creative world in the first place.
Creative world in the first place. Do we go back? Or
All the way back.
All the way back.
Yeah.
Well, I would say like my creativity and like everything. Oh, we're going way back.
All the way back, yeah.
All the way back.
Your first memories of being creative.
I would say like I've always had an interest in the creative arts when it came to, I just remember myself in elementary school, high school, and everything like that, because like my parents were very adamant in terms of doing not proper things, but, you know, filling your spare time with like things that would shape your mind, especially at such a young age. So I did extracurricular activities, and my dad was my biggest inspiration when it came to making everything creative, because he's a mechanic. He also did woodworking in his spare time and everything like that. And he just encouraged always having a hobby, right? So I was very interested in just the arts in general, drawing, painting, making anything. And it was mainly like just making stuff with my hands. And then my dad basically is like, I view him definitely as my hero, because like he's just inspired so much of everything when it comes to my journey, especially as a filmmaker and a creative. And then just looking back and remembering all the times I was in his workshop, just making things with my hand, woodworking, I absolutely fell in love with, right? And it was, just the general aspect of making things with my hands, and that just inspired everything else, right? So I always had a knack for just the creative arts and just making things, and especially when it just come to art too. It was weird because in high school I got the art award.
Really?
Yeah, and it's just like, what are you gonna do with that? I thought it was pretty cool.
Look
I'm
at
like,
me now.
I know, look at me now. You know what I mean? It's just like, and it was just visual art, so it was just painting and like drawing and stuff like that. But after that, no.
Interesting. Well, it's interesting that you say that, because you said your dad was a mechanic. And like all the other guys, you didn't go to film school.
I did my undergraduate degree in aerospace engineering, and then I did my master's degree in mechanical engineering with a thesis.
So how did you go from winning the visual arts award in high school? Why did you decide to pursue engineering instead?
Well, here's the thing. Like, as a parent, and I can relate even this looking back, obviously I'm not a parent right now, but my parents raised me to be like, okay, if you're going to go into anything, obviously we want you to enjoy it, but math, sciences, anything like that is going to secure you a good job, or even working with your hands, especially with a college diploma and then doing an apprenticeship like that. So my parents were very like, yes, do what you enjoy with the visual arts and everything like that, but like if you want a future and a career and everything, like pursuing a creative career is very risky. It's very subjective. It is, there's so many things just associated with it.
It's not traditional. There's no certain set path.
It's just
to
like
success, right?
Yeah, here's the creative industry, go.
Yeah.
And then you kind of just have to figure it out. Obviously, there's set guidelines and everything, but it's just so much more tough. So as a parent, like, you're gonna raise your kids and push them towards a certain way that's a little bit more safe, right? And then that, I was always good with the math, sciences, and everything like that. So obviously, I knew I wanted to pursue art, but I knew it wasn't like the creative arts of what I wanted to do. I didn't even know what Like I watched movies and everything, but I didn't even know cinematography or videography was a path for me then, right? So I fell back to what I was still good at, and I still enjoyed, which was the math and sciences. So I applied to a bunch of engineering school, not an art school in sight, because I saw it as a hobby.
Yeah.
And I was very real with myself. I'm like, I'm decent with working with my hands. I'm decent at creating stuff, but I know that this isn't what I want to do as a career. Didn't know yet exactly what that path led to. So I leaned on something that was more secure, which was engineering. So I applied to a bunch of schools. I got into Ryerson for aerospace engineering. Hi. It's TMU now. But yeah, no, I just applied for aerospace degree. And then everybody asks, because you're probably going to ask your question, why aerospace? What do you think the logical answer for that is?
I have no idea.
Is Zachary, you like planes? You like space? You like stuff? Nah, it was because it was cool.
It's the coolest out of all the engineering.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
It's just like, yeah, there's biomedical, there's electrical, there's everything. I'm like, aerospace, space, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then like, yeah, I was one of those kids who cruised through high school when it came to like just the math and sciences and everything, because it just came naturally to me. And it's just like my parents just invested in a lot when it came to education. So that was just so easy. But then when I look at my first year, I almost failed.
Why is that?
Because university is hard.
It is.
And then especially, I think, even just looking at the engineering curriculum, it's 6 full courses. And that's beyond a full-time job, right? Because obviously, you know, right?
Yeah.
You just came out of school. It's just like, I'm looking back, I don't know how I did it, right? Because it's just so much. You got to be on all the time, and you're just absorbing so much information and then just regurgitating it, right? And that's what, unfortunately, school and the system is. There's still value to it, but I feel like it's so outdated.
Interesting. So considering this incredibly heavy workload, and I'm sure you've seen like the memes online where it's like the engineering students, they have like their first year card and then their fourth year card. And the first year card is like this kid going,
let's get it.
And fourth year, he's like 1,000-yard stare. So like balancing all that and even like your master's, like how did you fit in this side of your creative? Like, how did you fit in your creative side? Where did that come into play?
I feel like we can't even get to the creative side yet because I didn't realize what I was doing with the creative side.
When did that come into play?
Yeah. Because like you're going to ask like, oh, when did you start doing video? We're not even close to that yet, like at all. Right. So a big thing is like, obviously I finished my first year. And then when we talk about course loads and everything, I know there's some engineers that watch the YouTube channel as well as that. And like, they really get hyped about that stuff to see like there's another engineer in filmmaking. To people who don't really know when it comes to school and engineering is that when you start off maybe with 200 people. Like, oh yeah, these are my comrades. These are going to graduate. This goes with any university or post-secondary degree. And then by the end of it, there's probably like 200. And then we finished with a class of 30. And then even in that, it's just like, whoa, what happened? You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's just like, it's crazy. Anyways, going back to the creativity aspect of that, my dad was a big, like if you're gonna go anywhere in life, yes, you have to have the knowledge, but you have to do the experience. People hire you for more hands-on things and more that you're capable of showing in terms of like things that you can do rather than what you know. That's one of the biggest life lessons I've ever like learned, and like I take it to heart because it's just proven time and time again. So after my first year that summer, my dad's like, eventually you're gonna want to pursue a certain avenue. Then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna think about this logically. Avionics makes sense because it's the most broad thing. I still didn't know what I wanted to do after the first year, right? I still wanted to do engineering because I enjoyed it, but like I'm like, avionics makes sense because electrical systems can apply to anything if I'm trying to go even more broader. And I really enjoyed electrical aspects of things, and I really just enjoyed that aspect. He's like, great, that's what you want to do. Okay, how can you start working on it this summer? And I'm like, I'm just trying to chill. You know, I was like 19. Vacation. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I want to chill with my friends and everything like that. But then I understand what he was doing is just like, okay, you're learning something, apply what you learned. And then that's summer. This is in 2018, I think 2018, 2019, whenever that is. And this is when drones started getting popular. And then everybody started just building them on their own. This is when like DJI had like their Spark and stuff like that. And so like you could buy kits, and then you could buy like custom flight controllers, propellers, and kits like that, and build your own drone. And that summer I did, and it was sick. I learned so much about like soldering, electrical connections, how to do wiring, just how to build things. And then that model I built on like so many different times while I was still doing my undergraduate degree. And then by the end of it was like a hexacopter with a retractable landing gear, had a gimbal on the bottom, a GoPro. I made it autonomous. It could do so much stuff. But it just started with that one concept of applying what you learned. I crashed it so many times, right? But it was like I learned so many valuable lessons from my failures rather than like my successes. Anyway, so that was answer to your question in terms of how I could creatively do something. I was taking this knowledge of engineering and then applying it to building something. That was my creative outlet. Yeah.
So when did you decide to start pursuing video then? When
So,
did the video aspect
The
come into
video was when I started like adding stuff to the drone. Then I'm like, oh, sick! I can add like a gimbal and a GoPro to it, and then I just started flying this drone around and filming things. And it was just like, if you look back at it, I'm sure we can pull the footage. It was just a static shot and it's just flying. But I thought it was the coolest thing.
Because you built it yourself.
Because yeah, you build it yourself, and it's stable and everything like that. And it's just like, whoa, this is a different perspective that I achieved. Like I've seen millions of probably drone shots in movies and everything, or just content that I consume. But I'm like, there's a different feeling than just doing it yourself. And you're like, wow. Right? And then I'm like, great. And then at that point, I'm like, yeah, this is great and everything, but I can't fly this thing anywhere.
Yeah.
One, it's like sounds like a bat out of hell. And two, it's just like it was illegal to fly anywhere.
Yeah.
So my parents were like, oh yeah, we're gonna take this vacation to the East Coast, and we did like 2 weeks in Newfoundland, PEI, Labrador, and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, it'd be great if we had something. And I'm like, oh, there's the DJI just came out with a Spark, and it was like it was under the weight capacity that Transport Canada put in place, that you could just fly it without any rules or regulations, and it had like a little camera on it with a gimbal. And I'm like, oh, this would be great. So my parents bought me that, and then yeah, we traveled to the East Coast, and then I was flying this thing religiously, like every day, just getting different types of shots. And I'm like, oh, I can like tilt and go forward. I can introduce orbit shots and different mechanics and everything like that. And then basically we would go to like a vantage point or take a day hike somewhere, fly the drone, and then that same day I would edit at night and just get so hyped and just show my parents and my brother and sister and everything like that. And that was the true birthplace. I can see it right now. And it was like, that was the true birthplace of falling in love with basically video production. And it was from A to basically B, of posting it, point A to point B, right? And then I'm like, wow, this is cool. You know what I mean? And it was the essence of capturing memories. And like, that's what I look fondly back on. But I realized in that aspect of like, I really enjoyed like capturing it, but I really enjoyed putting it together, choosing the right music and the whole editing aspect of it. And I feel like at that point, I didn't fall in love with video, but I fell in love with editing. Yeah.
Do you find that editing was kind of like a form of storytelling for you?
Yes, because I was never good at, like, I had the basics of what capturing video was, but I could pull a better story out of an edit. I can pull any story I want with the choice of music or choice of cuts of how everything. Obviously, we're talking about very basic stuff back then, because like compared to now, it's just like I look back at it and I'm like, that's cute, right? But it was the essence of just like I captured it just because it was a memory in time, and I feel like that's really cool.
Okay, so I want to jump forward just a tiny little bit. How did you pivot out of engineering into like kind of taking this more seriously?
So from the drones, I'm like, oh great, this is cool. Then I realized, oh, it's really stupid if you really think about it. I'm like, I can capture video in air. Oh, you can do this on land too?
Reverse engineered.
Reverse engineered.
Regular cam hopping.
I reverse engineered basically videography, right? Which is really funny, but yeah. And that's what happened. I'm like, oh, this is great. I really enjoy this from that experience that I had for those 2 weeks. Then that's when I bought my first camera. And at that point I was like, I really want to do this, right? And it wasn't videography. I just want to capture things with like a cool camera. And that's for the time where I was following people like Daniel Schiffer, Peter McKinnon, Matty Apoya, all these travel videographers and stuff like that. I didn't necessarily want to travel, but I was interested in like the cameras and stuff they were using. And that's when I bought the Sony a7 III, which was legendary at the time, 120 frames per second at 4K, 8-bit color, and a decent camera to take photos with. It was like remarkable at the time. Looking back at it, I'm like, ugh, right? But yeah, and that's the time everybody was shooting like 4K slow-mo and everything like that. And now your question is like, how did I transfer to like the professional side, like of videography, right?
Like, why did you decide to take it more seriously?
More
as opposed
seriously.
to just
Oh yeah, because I was just posting stuff online where I would go out with friends, shooting an event or something like that, go to the C&E, and then like stuff I said with my family too, and just posting online. It was getting a bunch of traction, and then it started off with music videos. Like, oh, these visuals are sick. It would be good for like music videos. And this was at the time where like I feel like looking back now, like social media has advanced like at a logarithmic scale of it, exponential scale where it's just going straight up like that. And it used to be a lot more chill. And then like if you were putting out good work, like it would go far very quickly.
Yeah.
Well, now I feel like it's just oversaturated with so much good work and it's so easy to get lost, right? So it's just like back then, if you were producing like good work and good visuals with obviously decent expensive camera equipment, like it would go places. And then that's what easily how it just picked up. That's how I met the Tenfold guys. That's how I met all my clients, was through Instagram. I just posted videos and then people would inquire. And that's where I'm like, oh, I can make money out of something I really enjoy, because I just did it for the wholesome reason of making memories.
Yeah.
And then people were like, yo, I want whatever you're doing onto my stuff, right?
Give me that.
Give me that. Yeah, literally, give me that. And yeah, that was like the transition, because to give you a timeline, I was still doing my undergraduate degree while doing like this videography thing on the side. And it was like doing like wedding receptions, product videos, music videos, fashion stuff, really simple things. And I wasn't charging. I remember doing like $200 music videos, $500 music videos, and like $500. I'm like, you're gonna give me $500?
I'm rich
to shoot something? And I'm like, whoa, you know what I mean? So yeah, that was like the transition to it.
How did you go from just posting this stuff on Instagram to moving over to YouTube? What was that decision like?
Oh, you started YouTube in 2018. So yeah, before Tenfold production was a thing, it just used to be Zachary Guy. And it was just a place to document what I was doing. I didn't want to be like, I had no visions of becoming a YouTuber, quote unquote. I didn't really want that. It was a place to be like, literally, here's a library of my journey.
Yeah.
And then I was creating a bunch of unique things that I feel like, oh, this is cool to show to the internet. And it was a lot of problem solving and thinking about outside of the box. And I remember like one of my first videos was building a car rig, because this is kind of like bouncing back between timelines and everything. Like this was during COVID, and this is when I was doing my master's degree. I was shooting a lot of car stuff, and the whole thing was like, I was tired of sitting in the trunk of somebody's car. And then I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this.
Like you mean like physically sitting?
Yeah, I was sitting
like
inside of a trunk and then holding a camera outside. Your literally arm is like this, and then you're hanging on to dear life. It's so unsafe.
Yeah.
Looking back at it, I'm like, oh my God.
This is not regulation.
This is not, anybody who's shooting any car stuff, do not do that, please. Okay? And I did it for so long that I'm like, there's got to be a better way. Right? Because somebody would have to drive the car. I would be hanging out. I only could last for like maybe like 2 or 3 minutes just because the camera is so heavy. Yeah. And at that point, like the Ronin RS came out, and I was still using a Ronin M, which is like literally like this big, right? So at that point, I fabricated like a little trailer hitch mount with a vibration isolator that I could fit my Ronin M on, and then bought the first Hollyland transmission system, a little director's monitor, and a little joystick, and then I put my camera on it, and that's how I started getting these really good rolling shots of cars that no one was doing with that size of kind of crew and budget. I know we're jumping ahead of time here, but this is like an answer to the YouTube thing, because I was making all this stuff, and I'm be like, this is pretty cool, you know what I mean? Like, I should document this. And then I enjoyed just the like, hey, here's my problem. Here's a solution that I came up with that's not the best, but it works for my scenario. Can you apply it to that yours? You know what I mean? And that's what I was doing. I'm like, here's how I created this. Here's how I did this. Here's how I did this. And it was just to share the knowledge of what I was learning, because I learned from YouTube University, and I didn't see a lot of people like me in terms of like just Black creators and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with race or anything like that, but I feel like people resonate with people that they can relate to more. You know what I mean? So I was just giving back to the community that just gave so much back to me. Yeah, that's how I started YouTube.
Yeah, that's definitely something, one of the things I admire about you the most. You're kind of like underdog mentality of, there's like very like, I don't know how to describe it properly, but like high class, like Hollywood level, like filmmaking that has always felt gate kept, right? And I think it's very admirable for you to really open that up to the community and not only share your knowledge, but really just show people that you can do what these people are doing as long as you're creative about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's incredible.
Oh, thanks, man. No, and it's always been that. It's just like, I've always appreciated that. Like the biggest YouTubers I watch are a lot of makers and stuff like that, and they show you exactly how you do it. And I'm like, I'm gonna make content that I enjoy, right? And it's just people saying like, hey, here's how I did this thing. How would you do it?
Yeah.
Right? I'm not saying I have the best experience that I'm learning every set I'm on. And like the biggest thing for me is like, I hate gatekeeping, especially when it comes to cinematography and like this creative field. It can get super toxic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at least if I'm making a difference to some sort of community, that's the big thing for me.
Awesome. So tell me, let's jump forward again. Tell me how you met the Tenfold guys.
Oh,
how did they first come onto your radar?
TF Nation?
Yeah.
Okay. So to kind of
Set the scene for me.
set the scene, I'm doing a bunch of, my videography business is doing well. At that point, I picked up a few clients that I was doing regular stuff for. I was doing a lot of wedding receptions of just like recap videos. And then also I was hired full time as a product videographer for a well-known drop shipper. And I was just doing all these product videos in a studio that basically out of his warehouse, right? So I was doing side stuff like video and stuff like that for like music video clients and all those stuff, working full time at that job, creating those product videos. And then at the same time, I was doing my master's thesis.
Damn.
Yeah, I had no life.
Sounds like you had a lot of life on your plate.
I was just about like, and then during my master's thesis too, like when it comes to master's program, especially when it comes to engineering, the one I did is a thesis project. So like there's course-based masters and then there's thesis masters. So thesis masters, you take some courses, but at the end of whatever time period, usually it's 2 to 3 years, depending on your funding, you have to present some sort of project, like a paper, like a 200 page paper and something physically there. That's a thesis, right?
Yeah.
So you can imagine that plus doing all that, I was just grinding, you know what I mean? And like, that's what really fueled me in terms of like, there's gotta be more. And I feel like that's like everything that I do. I'm like, always want more, not in terms of like a negative aspect that I'm not doing enough, but I always am striving for better. And then that's what I felt, especially when it came to the videography stuff. I'm like, sick, I'm making money, but there's something about this doesn't feel right. Like I'm missing the intentionality, and I feel like I lost that as I started just making money off everything.
Yeah.
Like you could still see that I shot it. You could still see that there was some level of whatever that sauce is when it comes to whoever you are, because I feel like everybody has their own way of cutting. Everybody has their own way of shooting. It doesn't matter if you take inspiration from other people. And then I feel like I lost that, and I was just doing it to make money. There's some stuff that I was fulfilled with, but I'm like, oh, this just looks cool, but it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
I feel like when I started, like it meant something, and then it looked cool to me because it meant something, right? That's what I was missing. And then just through like the community and everything like that, I remember in COVID, a Discord group started, and Adrian invited me because he was really into editing and After Effects as well. And then there's a huge side tangent we can get into. I got deep into editing.
Yeah.
Like visual effects, like After Effects, like I am low key, like that's my jam, you know? Like I love I love just motion graphics and just basic visual effects. I deep dive in that for like a full summer where I just brushed up on that. And that's why it got me so ahead in terms of just posting all these videos, because I could do basic visual effects on my videography stuff. Regardless, Adrian started following me, and then we just started going back and forth because he was doing the same thing. He did a lot of visual effects as well, basic After Effects stuff, compositing. And then he's like, yo, you should join this Discord group, because this was during COVID. And that's when I just met a bunch of other creatives, because I wasn't in the creative industry. I was just there.
Doing creative things.
Yeah, I was just an entity that everybody's like, oh, everyone knows who that is, but like, he just works by himself, right? I had friends that I brought on, a bunch of people that I work with, and then a lot of people know Jordan Westcott. He's my gaffer, and then I brought him into a lot of jobs, and he brought me onto a lot of jobs as well that he was doing. So that's like a lot of people I was working with, but still not known in the creative world of Instagram. You know what I mean? So yeah, I joined this Discord group, and then Jason, Justin, and Adrian, amongst a host of other people, were in it. And then I'm like, oh, cool. And then that's when looking back on it, that's where I got poached.
Yeah, that was the moment.
That's the moment I got poached. And I remember I got a message from Jason like, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, and at that point I knew who they were. I didn't know if it was Tenfold. I don't remember. Really?
Connect Productions.
No, I didn't even know that Connect was a thing.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But I knew like they were working together all the time, because then I saw their stuff, and then I was just like, oh my God. Like, this is what I want to do, because I saw the intentionality, I saw the story, I saw the inspiration, I just saw everything that we're doing, and I was just like, wow, I suck, right? I just make, crappy product videos and stuff like that, and like I just make cool car videos. I'm like, this is cool, and yeah, but it doesn't mean anything. And I'm like, what they were doing meant something, and I'm like, I aspired to be at their level of what they're doing. I looked up to Justin and Jason, and then as well as Adrian when he started working with them as well. So yeah, Jason messaged me. He's like, hey, what's up? Want to chat? And then he's like, yeah, let's just get on a quick call. And then I remember it was late night in my studio where I was doing a bunch of product videos, and I got on a call with him. It was like 8 p.m. or something like that. And Justin's there as well. Then I'm like, oh, this is an interview. I'm like, oh no. And then they asked the typical question. Oh, so like, what do you want to do and what's your dream client?
You know what's crazy? They asked me that too.
Yeah, I know, guaranteed. Yeah, I get it though, because it tells you a lot, right? And then at that point, guess what my dream client was? It's the typical one.
Nike.
Of course.
Yep.
Right. And I feel like that's I don't want to doubt, and I don't want to like cast shame or anything like that. But looking back at it and have all this knowledge about the creative industry now, Nike's whatever. It's like, you know what I mean?
Nike schmikey.
Yeah. It's like, obviously, it's a big brand and everybody wants to work for it. But I'm like, yeah, I really like the fashion space, and like my dream client would probably be Nike and everything like that. And that's like the typical answer. But then I explained the whole thing of like, I really want to, put intention behind my work, and I feel like that I'm not there yet. And they're like, cool and everything like that. And they're like, we have a potential project that, that I want you to work on, that like they wanted me to work on, sorry. And it was a Porsche spec. And then Jason was like, I already was having conversations with Jason offline too, in just terms of like random Instagram messages. And I was telling him what I was struggling with is just like the whole intentionality thing. He's like, just create something for yourself. And that was like the biggest thing that I did. And then that is spec work, everybody. And like Jason made me make my first spec, which was crazy because he did it like non-intentionally. But during that phone call with Justin and Jason, they were like, yeah, we're doing this Porsche spec with this photographer. And then Jason's like, I know that you hate being the car guy, because at that point I was the car guy because I was just doing so much car stuff in Toronto. But we need the car guy for this one. And I was like, I didn't care. I was just so stoked to actually get shots that meant something. You know what I mean? That had intention behind it and everything. And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. And that's when like the kind of first time we worked together. And that was kind of like 2 weeks after we had that call. And then between that, I was like, okay, I'm going to create my first thing. And it was a short film if you kind of think about it, but it's like a narrative commercial. And it was called Homework. And then I thought I was being slick of like, oh, everybody's working at home. This is relatable. I get it. It's like, it was there, but it was just like so corny. And it was just with an artist friend who I knew. And then it was basically her designing some skateboards and then me capturing that whole aspect. But it had that intentionality behind it. And it was the first time doing something. And you put it out in the world and it didn't do the best, but it was just like, I felt good about it. And I didn't really care what other people thought. And I'm like, okay, this is the first step. And that was my first spec. It's not going to see the light of day, but that was my first thing I did. And then fast forward a few weeks later, I did the Porsche shoot with them. And it was just me with my car rig and my parents' car shooting these insert shots of the Porsche, beauty shots of the Porsche as well. That do compare to like actual like, you know, crane shots and everything like that. I was super proud of the rig and it worked for what it needed to be. And then I also did some hard mount stuff with some suction cup stuff. I just had the gear. They wanted the shots and it just made sense.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is a great potential for me to start working with them. While the whole time Jason was apologizing to me. He's like, yo, sorry it's so cold. Yo, sorry, like this is taking so long. And I'm amped.
You're like, I'll do anything.
I'll do anything. I love you guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the first time I worked with them. And it was just Justin and Jason because at that time they were doing the same thing with Adrian and kind of like working on their stuff alone. So it was just kind of bouncing back between like this big group.
And then because I know at this point in time, Tenfold is not a thing yet.
Yeah, TF Nation isn't a thing.
Yeah, the birth of TF Nation. Let's get into that. Like, how did the four of you guys specifically start working together consistently? What was the mindset behind that?
It was 4 individuals who were stuck. 4 individuals that hit their ceiling of what they could do as individuals. Or, we would keep growing, but at a much slower pace. And it was us coming together with the common understanding of creating something bigger. We didn't know what it was yet, but we knew that we wanted to create better work. And the only way to do that is with a group of people.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of people in this industry have a hard-headed mindset of like, I'm going to create something, I'm going to do it myself. These are my ideas. These are mine. But our mentality is like, okay, if we're going to create something big, like you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
So let's do it together. And it's just like that common goal in mind. We didn't know what that was. We still wanted to work on a bunch of spec work and stuff like that. But at the same time, we're like, we got to make money. So it's just like, if I had a job, I remember the first job that I brought him on, it was for Nimbus. And at that point, it was just a learning platform, backdrop stuff and stuff like that, but super simple. And it was just like, I produced it and they had the FX9 and I'm like, hey guys, you mind coming on set? Like you have all this gear and stuff like that. And like, I can provide a B camera and all this other stuff. Like, do you mind coming on? Right. And then I remember slipping them each an envelope at the end, you know, like, I know it's not much, but like this is what, and they were just laughing their asses off because it's just me, just hey,
get yourself a little,
get yourself some, right? Low key, it's just $200 in an envelope, right? But those are the budgets that we were working with, and like that's what the reality is. Like Adrian had a job, if Justin and Jason had a job, if I had a job, we're just bouncing back and forth, and we did that maybe for a year and a half, 2 years, while creating work that we wanted to in the sideline as well, right? Yeah. And this is me still finishing my master's. This was during peak COVID, so it was a weird time for everybody, but it was the right time for everybody. Yeah.
So I want to focus back on you now because I know you were kind of like the car guy for a little bit. Yeah. You were doing your videography stuff. When did you make the intentional step? When did it make sense for you to become a cinematographer?
Wow. This is a big thing.
And what does that mean? Because I feel like even for me, like a year ago, I had like videographer / cinematographer / DOP like in my Instagram bio or something like that.
Don't do that.
And I'm like, I don't know camera. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you're so confused at that point.
Exactly.
I didn't know what a cinematographer was until I met them. I was just like, oh, I'm just a video creator. And I never even saw myself close to what a cinematographer was. And then because I mainly looked up to Jason's business aspect in terms of just pushing things and pushing creative so far. And then I looked up to Justin in terms of what his storytelling looked like. Yeah. Because if you look at any video, if you just were to jumble up a bunch of Tenfold videos and then you were just to play one, you would know if it's Justin's or not. There's a certain way things are shot. There's a certain cadence. There's a certain pacing. There's just something about his work that you're like, that hits, right? And there's been multiple videos that I've watched of Justin's when he was just doing stuff on his own that I've just bawled my eyes out just because he hits that mark. And I'm like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's what I looked up to. And then your question is like, how did you go from videographer to cinematographer? But there's a big step in between that I kind of realized as soon as I started working with them that you can't just do that. There's some sort of technical background and knowledge that you need to know. And then I'm like, I reverse engineered basically what a cinematographer was.
Go on.
I'm like, okay, here's a director of photography, cinematographer, whatever you want to call it. What is their job? What is a director of photography's job? See, right? Director of photography is supposed to be a good communicator, good team leader, and they're directing what the lighting and the camera movement looks like, right? And the big thing is like camera movement, yeah, you can kind of get away with, but lighting is the biggest thing. It's like, I would say like 75% of director of photography's job, cinematographer's job. And I'm like, okay, lighting. Okay, this is what's missing in the Tenfold group right now. Everybody knows something, but nobody knows something specifically that will elevate everything like all together.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, what is a lighting person? What is a lighter? Right? And then that's a gaffer. And that's what I did for a year straight. I just gaffed, right? Any job, I'm like, I will light this. I would love to learn how to light this. And that's what I did. And they're like, great, this is what we need. And then I just learned all different types of lighting, bounce light, practical lighting, motivating light. Every concept that you see me use today, I learned in that foundation of just working like that for a year. And I had no expectations to basically be a cinematographer. I just wanted to be a part of this group and just create something visually together.
Yeah.
Right? Because at that point, I was doing a bunch of the editing as well, and I was doing a bunch of the sound design too. If you look at like early Tenfold commercials, edit, Zachary Guy. Sound, Zachary Guy, gaffer, Zachary Guy.
Exactly.
Right. And I'm like, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I loved editing other people's projects with what they wanted as well. And then I loved adding like the little, like, I see it as like, oh, that was easy. It's just 10% of my work to make a product maybe 30% better. Because, you know, that's what the sound and editing process is like. And yeah, so I gaffed a lot of projects for a long time. And then there was this one project that they're like, Zach, you should shoot this. And it was for Black History Month, and it was a project called Black Rock. And it was basically like a slower piece, but it was all about creating mood, creating that Tenfold look that like everybody knows in terms of like super blue, but like orange, like it's the orange and teal, but like dialed down a bit. Okay. And then there's a certain sauce that we have. I don't even know how to describe it.
Can't disclose it. You know?
I know I can't disclose. I disclose it on every cinematic breakdown. 4,400 Kelvin and light with tungsten. That's it.
That's the magic sauce, fellas.
Right? And that was like the first time they're like, yeah, Zachary, you're gonna DP this. I'm like, huh? I'm like, I gotta lock in. Right. And it was like one of those moments where I'm like, because I gave so much opportunity, they were like, okay, I think, you know, here's your opportunity to do something. Not like, oh, like we're giving this to you. Don't screw it up. No, it was like, okay, we trust you to like, we can all hit this together. Right. And then, it was a beautiful thing. This is the first time working with like another gaffer as well as just like almost it was a skeleton crew. We had a gaffer, grip, and then a first AC. And it was amazing. It was like one of the most fulfilling experiences that I had because I knew how to communicate of exactly what I want. I also had some problem solving as well in terms of getting lights in specific places with magnets and everything. First time location scouting and like almost like a previs. We just used like CAD Rage. We didn't film anything. And then just playing up on huge composition, huge intentional lighting, just everything, every trick I knew, I pulled it out there and it like worked really well. But it was one of those things where the project ended up well, especially in terms of what we do and stuff like that. But it was a little slower than what the pace we're usually at. It's like, if you look at my cinematography mixed with Justin's editing and directing style, that's what the project was. And that was my first time I was like, oh, I like this, right? Because I feel like at heart, I'm a technical problem solver. And that's usually what a grip does, what a gaffer does. And then a director of photography takes that to the next level by like communicating that to a team. What happened if we try this? What happened if we do this? How can we do this, but the most effective way.
Okay, so after that project, what happened within the team? Because I feel like afterwards, guys start to find a bit of structure within like between you guys as a dynamic, but also as a business.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a blur when I look back at that because there's so many projects in between, and it was a constant like, ooh, yeah, what was the dynamic? We're still figuring out what it looked like, right? Because when it comes to owning a business as well, being a creative, like we always have to put the business forward and kind of push that forward. And it was like pushing new looks, which pushes the creative, and then coming back to the business and making money, and then reinvesting that money to push even more looks. It was like, do a job, make money, use that money to push a look for the work that we actually want to create.
Yeah.
Okay. And cycle. Buy more gear that is suitable for our system, right? And then that's when we started to invest in actually better cameras and everything like that. So the dynamic was like, it was between like me and Adrian swapping back between shooting commercials of whatever felt right. I was editing almost everything when it was appropriate for me. Like, I'm not going to edit a documentary piece. That ain't me. That's Justin. Like, I learned how to be a commercial editor, and that's like a whole nother side story. But if we're just talking about cinematography, I'd love to talk another time about editing. Right. But yeah, it was constant dynamic of like, okay, we're working together, constantly realigning, constantly like, what are we doing? Constantly just go, working on as many jobs as we can, as well as creatively fulfilling the other side of things too. So that was the kind of dynamic. Was swapping between Adrian and I shooting, Justin and Jason directing, me editing, a lot of the times Justin editing, sometimes Adrian as well. It was like everybody was wearing just multiple hats. Yeah.
And then how did the business start to shape up? What does that look like?
Yeah,
because I know that, like, first and foremost, your Instagram bio is going to say director of photography, but at the same time, that's not all you do at Tenfold. Like, you're still very much a part of the business side of this company as well. So how do you juggle all that? What does that look like?
So yeah, when we talk about Tenfold and like my role and what my responsibilities are, is obviously it's adapted over time. But we always play to what everybody's strength is. I'm very much, again, a technical problem solver. I like to just look at I usually generally just reverse engineer things and look at the macro of how we can get to places. But I generally don't have the forethought and like business mindset of what that looks like.
Yeah.
Like, where is this going? I know how to get there. I know all the micro steps to do that because I can easily lock in and do really any task. So when it comes to like my place, I'm like obviously a director of photography. I also still edit a lot, but that's kind of weaning off now. It depends on what project I'm editing, everything like that. And then also I'm just running the YouTube channel. Not running it, sorry, that's the wrong thing. But thinking of ideas that's a tough question of what do I do? What's my role at Tenfold?
I'm running the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. You are running the YouTube channel, but like, it's just, okay, now with saying that and like looking at where we are now, it's just like, fundamentally, I'm a director of photography, editor, still have that mindset. And then I'm doing what I did at the beginning of just showcasing and educating. I feel like I've always been an educator, but I didn't realize that. I only really made the connection when I was doing my master's degree, because I was also a teacher's assistant. And what a teacher's assistant is basically they get to run tutorials.
Yeah.
So I was teaching thermodynamics and heat transfer. And I'm like, why is everybody coming to my tutorials? Right? Like when you were doing tutorials and everything, like every section would go to a specific section because they had the best TA.
Sure.
Because they would teach in a different language and then they would actually care. And I feel like that's the difference when I've just learned in terms of education, that the best teachers that I've learned from are the ones that care. And I feel like when it comes to cinematography and when it comes to even editing, just video production, running a business, I care a lot because there's a lot of stupid things I did. A lot. And I'm sure you can relate in terms of your journey as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, there's so many. And I look back at that and I'm like, how can I create a lesson out of this so nobody does that? So I can fast track somebody's career. If I can fast track one person's career, I feel like I've done my job as whatever a quote unquote YouTuber is, and I'm happy about that. Right. So again, this goes back to what my roles and responsibilities of that. It's just to literally educate.
And that's why and that's why you still do the YouTube channel.
Oh, I absolutely love it. I feel like I always get split between of like being on productions. Like even like this quarter, you've seen like me on back to back to back. Like it's been 3 months and how many projects?
I would say I haven't seen you actually.
Yeah, you haven't seen me because like constantly going back to projects. Obviously, I can't name them right now. And then once you see me locked into YouTube, you're like, this guy's cooking. You know what I mean? Because that's what I get excited about. I get excited about like, Zach, here's a brand that wants to work with us. Can we find an angle? And I like the fact that when the YouTube channel started, it was like, okay, come up with an idea. Okay, how am I gonna film it? Okay, execution. Okay, how am I gonna edit this? Like, I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I was editing, filming, and doing all those videos and trying. I'm like, yeah, I can maintain this once a week.
Yeah,
that's what I was doing. It was crazy, man. It was so crazy. And then, like, I know we're backtracking a bit with YouTube, but I was really inspired by. I actually didn't know who Wandering DP was before I started making like those breakdowns.
Oh, really?
I was just like, wouldn't it be cool to draw on this? This is like how I would learn. And then I started doing it. And then Jason's like, oh, that's Wandering DP. I'm like, who's that?
Who?
I'm like, what's a DP? Right? So yeah, I feel like now it's just like when I get to work on YouTube, and I know like right now is a big YouTube week, I just recorded 3 videos. I feel like that's when I'm the most like creatively inspired because I look back in projects and I'm like, how could I have done that better? And how can I teach somebody a lesson about this in terms of like, don't do this. I did it. It didn't end up well.
Yeah.
I tried it. And again, this goes back to, I learn from my biggest failures. I don't learn from my really successes a lot. You learn a lot more from failures. And I feel like what judges a person's character is how they react to their failures, right? And I just adapted a lot of that when it comes to my cinematography and YouTube especially.
I think it's incredible that you're able to do like juggle all of these things and provide for the community with all the education and knowledge you got.
Yeah, I wish that I had more time for YouTube, honestly, because I feel like we could really polish videos. And I feel like even with bringing on you and Charlie, it's helped out a lot because I can just focus on like with your input too of the creative. But I just wish that I could do more. You know what I mean?
Like there's like 2 of you.
Yeah, I don't know how to describe it because it's just like I get excited about like, like right now I'm working on a probe lens video and like I get excited about that because I'm like I can showcase all the trial and error that I've like figured out with all using probe lens, condense it into a 10-minute video and show you exactly what to do and don't make the same mistakes I did, as well as don't fall into the common pitfalls that a lot of people do when it comes to using probe lenses, right? So that's like example of like just like as a teaching opportunity. I feel like that's almost every video. And yeah, I just wish I had more time to like even up the production quality of everything, right? Because right now it's just like we're figuring it out as we go. And I know like every step, every video, we're getting better and everything like that. So yeah, and even like getting other people's input and stuff like that. I know when we work on videos, it's just like, I'm like, this is so refreshing.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think we talked about a lot of stuff today and this is a pretty good place to end it. Yeah, we hit a lot of great points and I think I could ask you like a billion different questions about all the stuff that I talked about.
We'll get there.
If you guys like picked up anything interesting that you guys want us to talk about more, if you have any questions for Zach, just let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, follow us wherever you're listening to us from, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.
Peace.
Peace.